Now, an audit committee set up by the Supreme Court during last month's lethal second COVID wave has concluded that the Delhi government sought 4 times more oxygen than what was required. According to the audit report, Delhi needed about 300 metric tons of oxygen at that time, but the Delhi government raised a demand for 1,200 metric tons, 4 times more than what was required. The BJP has now slammed the Kejriwal government, demanding answers on exactly why the need for oxygen was exaggerated at a time when the entire country had a problem of a crippling oxygen shortage.
सवाल ये है कि जो सप्लाई ज़्यादा आई ऑक्सीजन की दिल्ली के अंदर, जो बाकी स्टेट्स में रोकना पड़ा जिसकी वजह से वहाँ अगर हुई मौतों का जिम्मेवार अरविंद केजरीवाल है। ये हाई टाइम है और अब सुप्रीम कोर्ट को सुओ मोटो इसके ऊपर अरविंद केजरीवाल के ऊपर एक्शन लेना चाहिए कि किस प्रकार से क्रिमिनल नेग्लिजेंसी करते हुए दिल्ली की जनता और हिंदुस्तान की जनता के अंदर एक पैनिक क्रिएट किया गया।
Anisha Mathur is joining us live from Delhi with more details on this. Anisha, just break down for us what really this committee has had to say about the oxygen crisis in Delhi and what the Delhi government had sought.
Well, Akshita, first of all, let me correct you on one major point. This is not a conclusive report. This is the interim report that the Oxygen Task Force has submitted to the Supreme Court, giving its findings in the first few days of its, where it was sought answers from the Delhi government, from PESO, from various oxygen suppliers, etc. Now, one very interesting point that has come out in this report is that the oxygen demand raised by the Delhi government was on the basis of the assumption that 100% of patients needed oxygen, whereas the government of India had said that please raise oxygen demand on the basis of the calculation that only 50% of ICU beds will need oxygen. But even after that correction was done, there were several hospitals in the city which raised a much higher demand as compared to what was the actual consumption in Delhi. So what we are seeing is in one particular page of the report, that the oxygen actual consumption of 183 hospitals that they had called for from the government was about 1140 metric tons, which was then corrected much later after the audit to about 209 metric tons. The Delhi government has claimed that their oxygen demand was based on the signed reports sent by all hospitals, and that is why the task force has now asked all hospitals to refill the forms and show the actual specific consumption per day on the basis of which further reports will be filed. In fact, the committee has recommended that there should be a oxygen stewardship program where the government should teach the hospitals exactly how and then what can be done, because there is a huge variation in the actual consumption and the number of beds in the...
Okay, Anisha, request you to stay on with me. Let's get in some reactions on this. The BJP has now pulled this up to slam the Kejriwal government. Gaurav Bhatia of the BJP is joining us on this broadcast. Gaurav, good morning. Your reaction to this report that's come in, the interim report from the Supreme Court Audit Committee?
Good morning. The report that has been submitted to the Honorable Supreme Court and as per media reports makes revelations which are very serious in nature. And it shows that on one hand, the central government, along with the expert team and the doctors of the country, were working day and night to ensure that we save human lives. But Arvind Kejriwal's government was a government that was inflating its oxygen needs, and they were playing with human lives, which is criminal in nature. And why was this being done? Because they did not want to take responsibility of their own failures, and they wanted to just blame the central government for it. Today, a neutral panel has given this damning report, and I think Mr. Arvind Kejriwal owes it to the people of the country, not just Delhi, to come out and explain these shortcomings. And second, please do remember that Arvind Kejriwal was asking for more oxygen till the time the Supreme Court appointed this special panel, and the moment it was appointed, they started saying we have excess oxygen. That itself reveals the fact that they were aware that they were demanding for more than required.
Gaurav, what do you make of the Delhi government's response here? They promised that they look into it, but they're also saying that, look, it was in fact hospitals that had put out this demand for more oxygen than what was required.
See, again, that argument is very fallacious, and they are again trying to pass on the buck to the private hospital players as well as doctors. We must salute the doctors and all the hospitals that were working day and night, and it must be understood in the constitutional context that providing the oxygen to the hospital was the primary responsibility of the Delhi government. And once they were getting oxygen, if they could not supply it to the hospitals on time, then it shows the failure of the Arvind Kejriwal government.
All right, Gaurav, Bhatia, thank you very much for joining us on this broadcast with your view on this. So clearly the BJP is questioning the Kejriwal government over this, saying that the entire country had a crippling oxygen shortage at such a time. This report that's come in, it's an interim report that's been filed by the Supreme Court Audit Committee that was looking into oxygen supply. This report, the BJP says, is proof that the Delhi government sought more oxygen than what was required. As far as the Delhi government's response is concerned, they've said that they're looking into this. This particular scathing report that's come in from the Supreme Court panel is something that the Kejriwal government has said that they're looking into. They've meanwhile said that the hospitals are also to blame, because they're saying that hospitals put forth a demand than what was actually required, and hence they put forth that demand that's 4 times more than what was actually needed. This is what the interim report from the Supreme Court Audit Committee says, and it's led to a lot of political bickering as the BJP and other parties are now demanding answers from the Aam Aadmi Party. We all remember what a nightmare the second COVID wave was, particularly because of how we saw a crippling shortage of oxygen in so many parts of the country, in the national capital as well.